Hello, everyone. So today is day six of the Mentor Conference, and I'm super excited to be here with one of the amazing speaker that I would definitely want you to introduce, to get introduced to. So today's session is very special and very different from the regular sessions that we had. Today is all about corporate career growth. How do you understand the company culture? How do you get motivated during these pandemic times? How do you find your next job? And a lot of other such things. So today's session is going to be a whole lot of engaging. And if you are, planning for your next career, option, stay tuned and stick to your seats. So we have Mark. Mark S Babbitt is one of my mentor. Back in 2013, I'll give you a very brief context of the story, how I stumbled upon Mark and specifically on a platform which I really advocate for. So I didn't knew Mark, and back in 2013, I was just curating blogs and writing some content on LinkedIn, probably like scribbling something, and I accidentally shared one of Mark's, blog, curated it, and wrote it in an article. What happened next is history. I got like 100,000 views in just 1 week, and it the my feed went crazy. Back in 2013, if you're getting 100,000 views, that means a lot, right? So that's how I came across Mark and his amazing website uturn.com, and we exchanged good positive notes, and I'm sure he must be very happy getting his content getting a good amount of reach. So yeah, I think that was a very good interaction that we had. And then some months after, when I was looking for some kind of opportunity in life, I was texting to everyone, hey, I'm looking for this kind of role. And there's a shameless thing being an entrepreneur. Until you ask, the answer is always no. So I just wrote to Mark on LinkedIn that, hey, Mark, I'm trying to do something in social media. And I gave him certain insights about his website. So I would really want something that I can, work upon on his website. So I never expected that he would say yes in the first go, but we had a good journey started, and gladly I would say that we worked together for 3 years during my entire college days on uturn.com. We can bring Uturn to India, because it's one of the amazing sites and the go-to platform for me, at least in my career days. How to write a resume, how to write a cover letter, what kind of etiquettes you need to follow in the interview, so many more things that I can learn. So yes, enough me talking about his work. Let me introduce formally about Mark. So Marcus Pavitt is a published author. He's written a couple of really amazing bestseller books on Amazon. The first one is in there in the screen, A World Gone Social, and in fact, my first book, I would say, in my book reading history. So he's been a great coach and mentor, and he also teaches kids volleyball. I'm really sorry for that, Mark. But yeah, over to Mark for his formal introduction. And this session is going to be a super engaging one. So if any one of you have any questions regarding career corporates, specifically about US or global opportunities, do comment. We'll definitely try and answer those questions. Over to you, Mark.
Well, thank you, Nikhil. First, let me say how much fun it's been watching your growth and watching this conference. It's much needed. We're still relying too much on diplomas on the wall and education, formal education, hard skills, and especially since the pandemic took over the world, people need to start thinking more about soft skills and internships and mentorship and building mutually beneficial relationships. So I'm thrilled for the conference. I'm thrilled for what you've accomplished, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you, Mark. So, Mark, why don't you give a little bit of introduction? What exactly are you doing currently in your professional life, and how did your career grow?
Well, I'm
I'm
happy.
sure it's a very long career, but you
Yeah,
can definitely have certain
yeah, because I'm
snippets.
old. Right? That's what you just said. I'm old. Nikhil, some of your audience might relate to this. I actually started as an engineer and did the Silicon Valley thing for 10 years, and then threw my hands up and said, "This just sucks. This is not who I'm supposed to be. I just can't go to the same cubicle every day and stare at a computer screen for 12 hours a day." And I needed more. I needed more. I needed more human interaction. I needed more relationships that would help my career and help my family. And so I walked out the door on a Friday afternoon, and I never looked back. And and since then, I've worked for myself since 1990. Now I've worked for myself, so 31 years of entrepreneurship and startups and self-employment, and I was very fortunate. In the year 2000, a friend of mine launched a startup, and it was right when online recruiting got big. Monster.com was brand new, Career Builder, Indeed wasn't even born yet, and we were on the front edge of that and did very well in the startup world. And over the course of 8 years of doing that, I realized we had taken the human right out of human resources. We no longer counted on those mutually beneficial relationships. We weren't seeking out mentorships. We weren't valuing internships enough. We just thought if we go get that degree and we just keep clicking that apply now button online 200 times, something good would happen. And for a long time, as you know, Nikhil, that worked. And then the global recession hit, and people were getting 400 resumes for every one open job. And it was at that moment, probably 2 or 3 years after we launched U-Turn, that people started realize how important those relationships are. And the company took off, and we haven't looked back since. And now we're launching a new version of U-Turn very soon, and we're very proud of. And here's what else happened along the way. I found out that as we helped college students, recent graduates, young professionals ascend into the workplace, which is our only job, right? U-Turn's job is to help recent grads and young pros get their first job or their first internship, right? That's what we do. And we quickly learned that a lot of the jobs that we were sending people toward sucked. A lot of the culture sucked. A lot of the leadership sucked. And it wasn't a fulfilling experience. I mean, here's somebody goes to school for 4, 6, 8 years, and you finally enter the workforce, and it's depressing and stressful, and there's no work-life balance. And so in recent years, Nikhil, I've turned my sights toward helping leaders build better work cultures. And the new book coming out, it's all about that. It's all about how to build an uncompromising company culture that doesn't suck. And we've called it Good Comes First, because we want leaders to realize how important it is to treat people well, to build those lasting relationships, to respect people. Matter of fact, to put respect on the same level as results, and get away from the win at all costs, and forget the environment, forget community, forget all of the stuff that really matters. Just drive results for the quarterly report. And we're trying to turn leaders' heads around on what a good company culture really does.
Interesting. Perfectly. I think that's a new trend that we are seeing. Earlier, there was more job security issues. Nowadays, the Gen Zs don't just want to be get paid; they want to be get entitled to. They do want something beyond that, the pay from the company, a good culture to thrive and survive. So let's understand few things about a lot of kids in this pandemic. Let's start from pandemic, which is a very critical issue, right? In terms of the employment world, so a lot of kids get demotivated, specifically international students, who are going abroad to US, UK, Canada, and different other countries, right? And because of so many visa issues or job losses, there's a lot of demotivation around there. So how do someone stay motivated in this kind of a time and still look towards getting their next career role?
So self-motivation is important, obviously, right? It's almost become a cliche, right? You can go on social media and see 8 million posts a day on the importance of keeping a positive attitude and staying engaged. But I tend to put the onus of motivation on leadership, on the bosses, on especially when you're dealing with young students. And so I say this all the time, Nikhil, the best way to stay motivated is to find a boss who really believes in you and you believe in them. Find a company whose mission you fully support, and something to get you out of bed in the morning. And if all you're trading is your intellect and your man hours for dollars, That's not very motivating, right? If all you're doing is collecting a paycheck so you can pay the bills, you're going to wake up one day like I did in 1990 and just go, oh, forget it. This is not what I thought it would be. And so a big part of motivation now, Nikhil, is staying deliberately engaged, and people stay engaged when their bosses help them stay engaged, right?
Absolutely.
You look at American culture right now, and you look at a company like Amazon, and it is this driven, autocratic, uh, um, a dog eat dog, only the best survive world. But how many college students would love to go to work for Amazon, right? Well, Amazon sucks. The culture sucks, and so we tell people don't just go for the marquee positions. Companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, they're having huge employee engagement issues right now, and so rather than go for the marquee companies that sound good, do the work required to learn if you're really going to be a good fit in that company with that boss. And if you're not, be brave enough to walk away and just keep looking. And I know people have bills to pay, and I know it's easy for an old guy that's done pretty well to say that, but I'm telling you, that job will suck the life out of you. It's the opposite of motivation, and it's worth hanging out for another month or so to find the right company.
Interesting. So when we talk about such companies, right? So what are these companies looking for in the candidates? How do candidates prepare for a right fit company?
So that's a very interesting question, and it leads us to this discrepancy between what companies are looking for and what humans are looking for, right? A survey just came out, Nikhil, post pandemic, that said 83% of CEOs want people to come back to work full time, but only 10% of employees want that. And so I say that because I don't want to think, let's not just talk about what companies want, let's talk about what people want. And so the best companies want self-driven leaders, informal or formal, doesn't matter, just own it. Whatever it is, own it. They're looking for good communicators. They're looking for problem solvers and analytical thinking. In other words, Nikhil, they're looking for the same thing they've been looking at since the social age began, right? But here's what's different now. Companies today, because of the pandemic, are looking for people with self-discipline. They're looking for people who deliberately build important relationships with customers, with vendors, with other employees, with leaders. They're looking for people who enjoy an autonomous work cycle. Like I know I can just give Nikhil a job, a task, and Nikhil's going to do whatever it takes to get that done. Yes, he's going to ask questions along the way. Yes, I'm there to mentor him. Yes, I'm there to walk him through it. But I just know he's going to own that task, and that is the biggest possible thing now. The world changed 16 months ago. We started working from home. We started, and now with all the variants in COVID here in the U.S., we're going to go back to that. We're going to go back to masks and go back to working from home again, and we have hotspots all over the place, just like India has fought through, and now Japan's fighting through, and the Pacific Rim, and companies are going to go back and go, well, we thought we were coming back to the office. We thought we were going back to command and control autocratic leadership style, but hold it a minute. Now this new variant's hitting, and it looks like we're going back home to work again. So companies want people who work independently. Now, I'll add on to that really quick. The best employees enjoy working independently. They thrive working autonomously. They don't need to be, their hands don't need to be held, right? They just give me the task, give me the resources, and get the hell out of the way. I will get the job done. And so that's when we get a good match between person, people, and culture.
Interesting. So I think this brings to a very interesting question, which definitely we're going to talk about a little bit of leadership here. How can students and young graduates, look towards build their profile and take such kind of leadership at their, next corporate job? Could be it starting as an internship or could be the first job.
Well, that is perhaps the best question of all. I remember coming fresh out of college in the military, and I would look around sometimes. And I go, God, I think I know a better way to do this. I think I know better people to help me do this, and that has not changed. And I will tell you, leadership, building your portfolio, it actually comes in two steps now for most people, Nikhil. First, I say this all the time, and I know the feeling on this is different, especially in international sequences, but I don't worry about building a portfolio. Accomplishments will come. I worry in the social age about building social proof. Like, how do you prove that you've done something really cool? And the answer to that question now is to develop social proof on social media, right? On Facebook, are you talking about your accomplishments? Are you talking about what you've learned? Are you talking? Do you put a selfie up of you at a conference, even a virtual conference, even if your face is just one of many on Zoom? Take a screenshot and show that you're there. Provide that social proof that you're improving yourself and you're contributing not just to work but to society and community. And once people, especially the good companies now, they see you organized a beach cleanup, they see that you took a stand on social injustice issues. Whether they agree with you or not, by the way, I will add that, but you're out there contributing to the world and to work. And once you do that, once people can see that you're fully engaged in work and life, and you're growing professionally and personally, leadership opportunities happen. And it used to be, and in some old school companies, Nikhil, it still is, you know this, if you were the best salesman, you got the sales manager job, right? If you were the best warehouse guy, you got the foreman job, right? Or the supervisor job. And some of that still happens, but especially in large corporations, companies fail all the time because they promote the best salesman or the best warehouse guy. They're not promoting leaders, they're promoting doers. And doers don't always make good leaders. So if you're really leaning toward becoming taking a formal leadership role in a company, you have to develop that social proof, and you absolutely have to be able to prove that you're fully engaged and you're ready to take on whatever comes your way.
Absolutely, I think this is very important for young graduates to be able to be out there on social media where their target audience is, and to be able to demonstrate what they're capable of, because the world needs a lot of interactions in those ways. So definitely, now let's come to something very interesting. We talked about the company culture, we talked about how graduates do need to adopt certain kind of ways and how they need to understand different kind of companies. Now let's talk about adapting to this new way of work in the post pandemic world. How we definitely talked about companies. Now how do graduates or young graduates adopt the way to work in this post pandemic?
Well, we already talked about a lot of that, right? The autonomy, the independence, the work ethic required, the self-discipline. But there's so much more to it, Nikhil. I can't even imagine how disruptive it has been over the last 16, 18 months for college graduates to go into the world and do everything virtually, right? Apply for a job virtually, pass the phone screen, get on Zoom 2, 3, 4 times, do a panel interview online, actually accept the job offer having never met the person you'll be working for. And it's just changed so much, right? And now we have video-based technology that records canned answers to canned questions, and it's so much different than it was when we first started U-Turn, and what we've expected from people. So I think a big part of this, Nikhil, is the adaptability. It's all right, I don't care what I think I knew. Here's how the company hires, and I need to adapt well to that process. And that adaptability, that changeability, that willingness to open your mind to new opportunities and new ways to get things done, that's huge right now. Now, once you get the opportunity, Nikhil, now it gets back to the autonomy, the independence. Can this person work well from home, unsupervised? Now all of that comes into play. And there's two levels of this, right, Nikhil? There's getting the task done that's been assigned to you, and then the second part is making it even better, right? Coming up with a new idea, suggesting a new way to get things done. Actually sticking your neck out a little bit and selling an idea, and that takes courage, right? Especially when you're working from home. Work-life balance is already blended. You're working while your roommate or your mom's cooking dinner and doing the dishes, and you're right. There's all these distractions and Netflix, and right. It's hard. It takes determination. It takes courage to actually stick your neck out there and try. Not just do the job, but make the job better, make the company better, make the customer experience better, and that's how people are really thriving in the pandemic. And now, what we'd hope to be the post-pandemic world that now we're sliding back in. But don't just do the work. Don't just do the work. Make the work better.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no point of doing the work in a blind fashion. You need to be smart at it. Let's understand a little bit about when they're looking towards, joining a company. How do they understand the real company culture, at a company, and how do they get to know what's the right fit? Because there are often, we see people, changing jobs very often. I'm not sure how it happens in US, but in India, we've seen pretty much of a issue that people changing job almost every 6 months or a year also. So and most of the times it's a company culture. So how do people understand what kind of a culture company has, and how do they understand where they would fit in if they are the right fit for them?
Well, that it isn't just India. People did what they had to do to survive the pandemic, right? They didn't want to change jobs. They just needed to pay the bills. I mean, here in the US, 15% of the world was laid off, right? So nobody wanted to rock the boat. And as we started to come out of the pandemic, before this new variant hit, people said, this job sucked way before the pandemic happened. My boss sucked. This company sucked. And I'm done. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go find a better culture, a better boss. And here's what happens though. All we do is we read the About Us page. We read the careers page, right? We read the job description, fast paced, dynamic, blah, 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 detail oriented, right? All of that crap that every company sells, right? And we don't dig in, right? I recently talked to a graduate who said, I accepted the job offer and she was so happy. And I said, so what's your boss like? Oh, I haven't met her yet. Are you kidding me? You just accepted a job offer and you didn't ask to actually have a lunch or a Zoom call with your boss? And that's going to be a disaster. It always is, right? Unless there's a, match made in heaven and they just happen to get lucky. Your boss dictates the right culture for even in bad companies. If you have a good boss, that boss will protect you. That boss will mentor you, right? And it may not last forever because company culture is company culture, right? But first step is you got to make sure you have a connection to that boss, as we talked about earlier. They have to be. There's 3 levels of managers, Nikhil. You and I have talked about this a million times, right? There's manager, the boss, who's focused on compliance and conformity and results, right? Above that is a leader. A leader, of course, cares about results, but they care about the mission more, right? And they care about their people. And it isn't just about results. People matter, right? And so a leader is a step way above manager. Well, above that, Nikhil, is mentor. And that's a leader who cares about not just your work, but you personally. Are you growing? Are you adapting? Are you learning? Are you meeting your potential? How can I help you better meet your potential? And so what we tell people all the time is never settle for a manager. at least shoot for a leader, and wherever possible, shoot for a mentor, because then you'll know that you at least have somebody that has your back, right? Now,
Interesting.
excuse me. The other part of this is the company culture, and that's where we can't just settle for the about what the about us page says and the career page and the job description. You actually have to do some digging. Go into your LinkedIn um, uh, contacts and see who's worked there. Right? Go to Glassdoor if it's an international company. Go to Indeed. Look at the reviews. Even better, Nikhil, go to social media and see how that company treats people. Right?
Yeah.
Are they being genuinely helpful? Are they supporting community events? Are they taking a stand on issues like Black Lives Matter and economic inequities? Are they raising their minimum wage voluntarily? Right? Those are the kind of companies that instinctively have a great company culture, and it's not just a human factory where they're going to chew you up and spit you out. So if you want to know what the real company culture is, spend an afternoon, get a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, and just spend a whole afternoon digging into what their company is really like, not what they're selling you.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a very important way to understand about the bosses and the managers and the entire company. So guys, do definitely do a digging. Don't just take up a job offer because it's paying you 10 or 20% extra hike. Yes, the hikes are decent, but then what kind of a culture you are being a part of? Because it's a long-term investment for you and for your own life, and even it could impact your family because if you're not mentally healthy, it could also adversely impact your family also. So
Well,
taking up the culture is very important. Yep, Mark.
yeah, Nikhil, I'm just going to add one more thing because you said something very important, and we don't want to just let that go. The best companies understand that you have a personal life, right? That you have a wife and kids and or a dog or an engagement, a wedding coming up. Your elderly parents aren't doing well, right? The best company cultures, you'll see it because people will say, "Look, I recently had a brother with cancer, and they gave me 3 weeks off to help settle his affairs and get him into the right treatment plan and my dog didn't like the transformation back into office work, and they let me bring my dog into work. Right? You're going to see little hints like that tell you that company actually cares about the people working there, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who not just respects your personal time but engages in your personal time. That you're not going to work 12, 14 hours a day and just burn out in 6 months or a year and get angry, lose any semblance of mental wellness. Those are the companies that are really doing well right now in the cultures space are those that respect the fact that you need time off, you need to refresh, you need to be willing to re-engage, and the companies who aren't doing that, you got to run away because
Yeah.
they're gonna burn you out. You're not going to be happy, as you said. Your family's not going to be happy. It's never those situations never end well.
Absolutely, and I think that's a very important statement because ultimately you're doing job for what? For your own family, for yourself. And if you're not happy with the job, what's the point of doing that particular kind of a job? So let's understand a little bit beyond the jobs, right? So how someone can leverage the non-corporate career options, because there would always be a tribe which is more, I would say, bold, more risk-taking ability, or itself, they want to explore something. So like fields like entrepreneurship, freelancing, which is booming nowadays, honestly, digital nomadic life. So how do someone leverage that kind of a career option? What are the pros and cons into it? And what are the advice that you have for them?
Well, it's a great question, and I will tell you that here in the U.S., although it's changed now, people were conditioned for a long time to go and get the job at Facebook and Google and J.P. Morgan and Chase and get the Wall Street job or perhaps an academic job, right? And that was career building. That was prestigious, and the reality is, in today's, especially in our pandemic and post-pandemic worlds, some of those jobs just don't exist anymore. And even the JP Morgans and the Amazon, the Facebooks and the Googles, they're hiring independent contractors. They're hiring freelancers. And one study just came out that said 70% of all jobs by 2025 are going to be independent contractor work, right? I mean, that's huge. And now I will say this: 5 years ago, they said by 2020, 75% of all jobs would be independent contractors. So we got to about 51%. So here in the U.S. So prognosticators, predictors aren't always right, but we have to be mentally prepared. And if those corporate jobs, those 9 to 5 jobs, in office jobs, burnout jobs aren't going to exist, what are you going to do differently? And that's where we're advising everybody now to keep a completely open mind on the possibility of freelancing, on becoming an independent contractor that maybe has 2 or 3 clients. So if that company or that sector, that industry isn't doing well, you still got two other clients to fall back on, right? And so that's huge now. Now, freelancing is not for everybody. You asked about pros and cons. People like to get that normal paycheck. They want company paid health insurance if it's available, right? There's a whole bunch of really good things about the traditional, employee job. But there's also some really cool things about freelancing, right? You control your own schedule. You control your own work-life balance. You get to choose who you work with and for, which to me was always a big deal. I can't. You and I've talked about this before, Nikhil. I fired so many clients where I just went, this just isn't a good match, right? Your heart isn't in the right place, right? And even when I help people on the career side, if I see somebody just going for a paycheck, then that's not what I do, right? I help people find really good work and really good companies. And so if you're just elephant hunting and you only want to work for Ford or Chase or one of those guys, Google, I'm probably not your guy, right? So there has to be a match there. And as a freelancer, you get to decide if there's a match there. You don't have to go to work today. Well, I wonder if today's the day I get laid off or I get fired, right? You get to do the firing as a freelancer. You get to decide who you're going to work with. And so that's exciting. And then I'll tell you, Nikhil, one of the highlights of my life, and we already talked about it during the introduction, was an open mind allowed me to go from working from this huge Boston-based engineering company to the startup world and to entrepreneurship. And that's, when I did that, my own father said, "You're crazy. You have a perfect life. You're living in California under the palm trees, right? You have a wife and a baby and I mean a company car, and you just quit? Are you crazy?" Right? And he didn't understand. I just wasn't happy. And so when I went in the entrepreneurship route, I became a better version of me, and I became a better father. I could be at my kids' school events, and I could coach them in baseball, and that meant more to me. Life meant more to me than the company car and all that stuff. So I think people today, even though I know we're still chasing the degrees and the advanced degrees, and I get how important that is, and I certainly understand how good it would look to have Google or some company like that on your resume. But Nikhil, I'm telling you, there's nothing more important than being happy and feeling fulfilled and doing work that really matters. And so that's, at least for me, that was always more important than working for that huge engineering company that everybody knew. And I could walk into a networking event and go, well, I'm an engineer for X company. And they go, ooh, right? And yes, that felt good in the moment, but was I genuinely happy? Did I feel fulfilled? No, I didn't. And so it wasn't until I went the entrepreneurship route and eventually the freelance route that I found my own calling.
Absolutely, and I think I'll relate to it more because I remember I had a very similar journey back in India when I graduated from one of the top five colleges, and I didn't took up a day one job, which is like very high paying job, and even my father got crazy, crazy on me, like, okay, you're not doing your thing, you belong to a middle class family, and then you have to get a job. But then it's not easy. Guys, you need to understand this thing: freelancing, entrepreneurship. It's not going to be the easy route in the first place. You just don't do it because you're frustrated. You do it because you have a purpose. You want to get out of it, and you have to take that grind. you know and Mark, I'll be very happy to learn a little bit more about how U-turn started. What was the grind behind it? How did you grew U-turn in US and your other sister companies?
Well, I will tell you, U-turn was my third startup, and the first one went very well. We already talked about that. We I came in a little bit later. I was not a founder. I was asked to lead the sales and marketing team, and I was the fourth employee, I think, but not a founder. And we grew that company from a $2,000 investment. We sold it for $105 million. So I didn't get much of that, by the way. But it was just this great feeling. It was this feeling of accomplishment that we'd really done something, just incredible. And so about then, I was mid 40s and had remarried and was a single father of my four older kids. And my new wife and I, Deb, who we had a new baby. And so here I am at 47 years old with a newborn at home. And we sold the company. I was between gigs, and do I go get a real job? Do I not? Do I just hang out here for a little bit? Well, I hung out just long enough to have another company from Silicon Valley call me and say, we're hurting. We got $13 million from Jeffco and Bessemer, but the VC is not happy, and can you come and help us? And so I spent the next 3 years of my life, after saying no, by the way, for 6 months, even though the money was really good, the culture just didn't seem to be a great fit. And after about 6 months of saying no, they finally said, look, just come out. Just come to San Jose, talk to us, see the offices, and let's decide if this is a good fit or not. So I said, okay, fine. But once I say no this time, that's it. Well, I went home that day with a cell phone and a laptop and a hub and a monitor, and I started working for them the next day after telling my wife, I still don't think this is a great fit for me, but the money's just crazy good, and we're not going to turn that down. Well, that was the first time ever that I took a job just because the money was good, and it was the worst experience of my life. It was stressful. It was we never focused on the employees or the customers. We were always focused on pleasing the VCs and the people who gave us $13 million. We were always focused on getting the next $5 million in round C. We never built a culture. We were all about making everything look good on paper, and it was so contradictory to how I thought and how I worked that I eventually called the investor board, the people who brought me in, and just said, I can't do this anymore. This isn't real. And they said, well, if you leave, we're locking the doors. I went, fine, lock the doors, but I'm done. And so we laid off 110 people and never did get the next round of funding necessary to stay alive. Even though we were at $7 million in sales at the time, we just had a fire sale. We sold to another job board, and I walked away. And so finally, to your question, that's when we built U-turn. A bunch of us from that company said, I think there's still something to be done here. I think if we focus on internships and apprenticeships and mentorship, that we can help people get away from just clicking on that apply now button 200 times. That people can actually build fulfilling, meaningful careers, do good work, and that was the premise for U-turn. And I'll tell you, Nikhil, you know this story. For like 2 years, it was crickets. Nobody heard about us. The sales were slow. it was destructive. It was like, okay, well, the runway's getting shorter and shorter, and we're still building the airplane as we're going down it. So something's got to change. And then one Sunday, Mashable named U-Turn one of the top five sites for starting your career, and literally overnight, after 2 years of 1 year of development, 2 years of struggling, all of a sudden U-Turn was on the map. And in the next 2 months, we were in The Economist and Wall Street Journal and Investors Business Daily and Inc. and Entrepreneur Magazine, and so overnight we started making a difference, and we're still going strong today. I have a great team that's still running it. We're building that new version of the site, and can't wait to get that launched this fall, and it's still a fun ride, and we're still helping good people do good work.
Great. I think that's a very interesting journey altogether. Like 10 years of entrepreneurship, I can just imagine. Mine is third right now, or probably first or second, technically. So yes, I have a long way to go. But thank you for sharing a lot of amazing insights. Now let's come to the Q&A. We have certain people who are asking very specific questions. So we have one question by Surya. You have years of experience as an entrepreneur and in the corporate world. What do you think building a startup or taking up a job post pandemic?
Uh,
What could be?
so great question, and completely dependent on your how where you thrive, right? Um, I have to tell you, people in my own family. I already told you, my dad thought I was crazy for not taking, keeping the corporate job. Right. My first wife thought I was absolutely nuts. And why would you work that hard? Why would you go out on your own? You had a great job. We had a great life, right? And but I was not thriving in that environment. And I will tell you, yes, some of the answer to this question is just yes. It's go get your corporate job while you do a side gig and pay the bills while you're building up your startup. So for a lot of us, the answer is yes. You have to do both because,
Yeah.
right, unless you get an angel investor or a seed investor or are fortunate enough to have a great business plan and a model and get some VC money, you're going to self-fund that startup at least till you have social proof of its viability, right? So for a lot of us, you do one gig while you start another, right? And
Yeah.
in that case, by the way, I will tell you, there's nothing wrong with just taking it for the paycheck, because you're just taking it for the paycheck, right? Go do good work, of course, but you're working on your passion over here on the other side, and that's okay, right? Uh, I'll tell you, for me, the difference is this simple. If you wake up in the morning and your job sucks and you're only doing it for the paycheck, and you just hate going to work, you hate getting on the train, you hate commuting, you get in and all of a sudden you have to turn on that fake smile and, oh, hi, Charlie, good morning, right? And really you just want to be home in bed. That's where you got to say, no, I can't do this anymore, right? Because you're doing a disservice to everybody. But the answer to the question is, it's different. It is different for everybody, and some people
Yeah.
are born entrepreneurs, right? Some people can't wait to get up in the morning and run their own business, and others go, no, I like the security, I like the health benefits, I like the idea that I'll be promoted in 5 years, and to me, I just kept looking up at and going, 5 years, Jesus, that's forever from now. No, I want to do something today, right? So it really is different for everybody, but you'll know in your gut, you'll know which path is right for you. And by the way, Nikhil, you know this. You can't just say, oh, I want to go be an entrepreneur, right? I want to be a billionaire, right? You have to have a really, really good idea to have a differentiator in the world. You can't just wake up one morning and, you're not going to be the next Gary V. You're not going to be, a social media celebrity. Most of who've come up and burn out already, right? That's no way to make money. You have to have a really good business model. You have to have an incredible differentiator. The Ubers of the world, the Hello Freshes of the world, those are the guys that are doing amazing work because they filled the niche that wasn't there before. And so you can't just proclaim I'm an entrepreneur, and that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal should be how I'm going to help solve this societal problem, and this is the company I'm going to build to do that. It can't just be I'm going to be an entrepreneur. You have to have a really good idea, and you have to execute. Period. And by the way, you better be pretty good at that, right? Nikhil, you've heard me say this a million times. It's even if you take a corporate job, ask yourself. And I've gotten to travel all over the world and do keynotes at many universities, from Hong Kong to Europe and all over North America. And I ask the same question at every single keynote. I don't say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I say, what are you really, really good at, and who will pay you to do that? And if you know the answer to those two questions, now you can do whatever you want. You can do the corporate job. Let's say you're a good accountant, but you don't want to own your own, start up your own CPA firm, then fine, go be a good accountant for a good company and make good money, right? But if you really have that entrepreneurial spirit, and you really want to work on building those great relationships and build a great company, then you still got to be really good at something, right? And somebody's got to pay you to do that.
Absolutely. I think identifying these few fundamental pointers are very important, because not entrepreneurship is going to be for everyone. And what I learned from my startup journey is, you gotta nurture your venture until it becomes big enough to nurture you back. So it's a I would say parent and baby kind of a relationship. You're gonna nurture your baby once it grows bigger, and then he or she is going to take care of your bills. That's how it happens in India. I'm just giving an Indian context here.
My friend, that happens everywhere. And by the way, along the way, those babies can be a major pain in the butt, right?
Yeah.
You're going to wake up some days and go, what the hell am I doing? This is, right? I'm losing my stomach lining. I'm losing my hair. I'm gaining weight. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating right, right? If you enter the entrepreneurship world, get ready for some of that and have the fortitude to stick it out, because it's not easy. As you said, it sounds good. It looks good. But I mean, if you're leaving the corporate world because you're working too hard and now you want to go to entrepreneurship, if you're in a corporate job, you don't know what working too hard is, right? You just go and you put your time, you go home, right? Entrepreneurship, as you know, Nikhil, is just not like that. And it takes a certain mindset. And by the way, that's why I think freelance is a really good happy medium for that, right? Because freelance is a great way. You can't be a freelance if you're not already good at something, right? Marketing or creative or speech writing, whatever it is, being a mechanic, right? You're already really good at something. Now you have to figure out how to make money doing that. You have to find the customers that will pay you to do that. And that's why I think freelancing and contract work, that's kind of in between corporate world and entrepreneurship, because you could start a freelance job tomorrow, right? You can go get a GoDaddy URL, print some cheap business cards. You could be a freelancer starting tomorrow with no investment. Well, a couple $100 maybe, right? And launch a website. Go to Bluescape or one of those or Bluehost and pay for the 6 months of hosting, and boom, you're up, right? So freelancing is a great compromise between entrepreneurship and the corporate world.
Absolutely. I think that also teaches you a lot of discipline and kind of tests your own skills, so that if you're frustrated about your job, you kind of get a reality check also, that, hey, sometimes entrepreneurship is not the right thing. But yeah, we have certain interesting question by Prem GI. So what is your best tip for a fresher startup? Fresher starting up, what's your best tip on that?
Find the need. Right? Do something nobody else is doing, or do it in a way nobody else is doing it. Right? When we started U-Turn, we were in many areas, although a ton of imitators came along focused on internships. Some, with huge VC money, 500 startups invested $20 million in one of our competitors, and they were gone 3 years later. Right? We deliberately focused on mentorship, and relationships and internships and apprenticeships, and that made us different. And that's the key. Don't, nothing wrong with going and starting another pizza restaurant, right? Or buying a franchise, but your startup is going to have to be based on one of two things, Nikhil. One, you have a product nobody else has, period, right? Or at least your product is better than everybody else's, right? One of my friends is doing, pepper shakers. They've been around forever, right? Well, he created an automatic. He calls it a pepper cannon, and instead of having to grind that pepper shaker 300 times to get the right amount of pepper on your salad, you push a button and it just spits out pepper, right? And the money on Kickstarter was amazing because it was a better product, right? But not everybody has that mindset. But let's just say that you're in a social media business, right? And you want to launch a niche channel, then your service has to be amazing and your platform has to be community based, and you can even in a very crowded field, you can do something different. You can serve a need within a very specific niche where you can do very well. And so you don't have to have a pepper cannon. You don't have to cure cancer. You don't have to go to big pharma, but you got to have a novel idea, and you have to have incredible support within a niche, and just treat those people very, very well, and word will spread. People will flock to your startup just because you provide great service and provide a sense of community.
Absolutely. That's great. I think that this is very interesting for me also to learn about it. Okay, so I think trying out is the number one thing that we should take it up. If you have anything, take that 5 seconds or 5 minutes and try it out. Probably, write it down on a piece of paper and express yourself. Don't just keep procrastinating about the idea that one has. Okay, one interesting thing that someone asked, and probably Mark, it's the right time to also tell audience about your upcoming book. So one interesting thing Mahesh Kumar has asked, can you please share about your experience of book writing? And yes, I would also want to know because The World on Social was my first book I read.
Well, I hope you read a classic in school rather than maybe it was a first business book. So I am one of those guys, Nikhil. I've always been a behind the curtain guy, right? Even in my corporate world, I wasn't the guy out front, and so it took I don't know, it took a lot of energy for me to put my name on a book, and just the idea of putting my name on a book, and I it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I'll tell you that. But it's also one of the most rewarding. It's, you're talking about writing 90,000 words, not repeating yourself, doing the research required to actually come up with something original, right? Our new book coming out, me and my co-author, who I work with a ton in the culture and leadership space, Chris Edmonds is his name. He wrote a book in 2014 called The Culture Engine, which did really well, all about company culture. His book came out a week before A World Gone Social came out. And so this is 7 years ago. We met at a conference in Chicago. We started talking about, we need to blend these two ideas about how different culture is now because of social media and company culture, and using social media for good, and building those important relationships. And so 7 years ago, we started talking about it. 3 years ago, we started writing it. We were almost done, and the pandemic hit and changed everything about company culture. And so we had to stop and rewrite it again. And now, I will say this: the pandemic made the book and the process better. It brought us back. It even helped us change the title of the book, Nikhil. Because we saw people thriving in work at home environments and living with this new level of autonomy and independence, and and away from command and control leadership styles, and it made the book better to focus on leaders putting good first, and so it's a grueling process. Uh, it's and by the way, I will tell you the same thing happened with a World Gone Social. Every time we thought we had the book done, a new platform would come out. Social media changed again, right? Or there was an example of social media being used terribly, like United Airlines, and
United Airlines.
right, and it was like a moving target, constantly a moving target, and at some point, the hardest part about being an author is to say it's done. We got to stop, right? It's
Yeah.
good for today. It's good. It's based on everything we know today. It's done, right? And that's the hardest part. Now, most authors, to answer your listener's question, we still got jobs, we still got bills to pay, we still have families to take care of, and other responsibilities, and that's blocking out time to write. I mean, I know some authors, Nikhil, they go, well, I'm going to write from 4 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, I found if I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, no words came out, right? It was like, but when I feel inspired, when I get a thought, when I'm working on a specific chapter, or I'm editing my co-author's work, and you just get on a roll, and I've learned don't stop, cancel meetings, except client meetings, cancel meetings, push off dinner with the family, whatever. My family knows I'm trying to write in here, right? They know he's on a roll, leave him alone. And so even though it took 3 years to write that book, I'll bet you that the best of the writing was done in 2-day bursts, 15, 16 times, and 85% of what's in both books is done during those just incredibly insightful, inspiring bursts of words. And I will also tell you, we threw out a lot of words that we wrote and just went, no, that's not good enough. It's not a good enough story. We didn't make the point. We didn't finish the point. You end up throwing a lot of words away that you thought were good when you were writing them, and then you read them the next week and you go, wow, that sucked. That isn't what I meant to say at all. So there's a lot of give and take in book writing.
Great. So we have a couple of last questions, guys. If you have any questions, do put it in the comments. So we have one interesting question by Surya. What is the biggest challenge faced by you as an entrepreneur?
Financing, period. It's so hard to either bootstrap or find the seed money or the angel money, the VC money. As an entrepreneur, if you don't have a plan for getting the money, and if you don't have a good enough model to bootstrap and to self fund, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
Because it's stressful. It's not even about the money, right? You can always find a way to extend the runway. You can always find a better way to build the airplane as you're going down the runway. But it's just stressful. It's taxing on the human body. Like my second startup, you start caring about the VCs, the angel investor, the reports more than you do the people that are helping you get the work done, or your customers. And it's just so stressful.
Interesting. I think that's very, like understanding the cash flow and having a little bit of idea about your financing your business would be really important for everyone. It goes like without saying, having a good cash flow would save your business for sure. Okay, so here we come to the end of the session, Mark. Thank you for joining in and sharing a lot of insights. In fact, I think in the past 3 to 8 years, I think we've been knowing each other for almost 8 years, and I get to know a lot about you today itself also. So thank you for joining in for today's session,
It,
and lovely
my
audience.
pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
So now we are back to the end of the session. So I hope you guys have gotten basic insights about the corporate life, understanding the culture in a particular company. Knowing about what kind of job you would want to pick it up. What kind of career options that you would want to go ahead. how entrepreneurship is difficult versus what are the difficulties in corporate life. So there's so many nuances that you would have learned. So if you like this session, definitely share it on social media. You already have the YouTube link or the LinkedIn link. Do tag Mark. He's an amazing mentor, and he gave me my first US internship, honestly. So, and that's how you kind of build network and connection. You reach out to people, you build network, you kind of add value to their, network or their lives, and that's how you be in the good books of the people. So now I have certain interesting videos for you to play, but this session is today's done. For tomorrow's session, it is going to be super power packed. Okay, tomorrow's session is all about product management, understanding product management, building great products, getting a job into product management. And by the way, product management is the most, I would say, in demand job right now on the planet itself. Yes, product management is being needed everywhere. India, US, Europe, Canada, UK, Australia, anywhere. So that is where you should know what product management is, how you can break into product management, and so many other insights of building great products. And to give you that kind of an insight, we got three super amazing, super talented, top notch mentors and speakers. They themselves are social big brands on LinkedIn. If not, go and check out the product management post on ForeignAdmits LinkedIn, and you would get to know who they are. So tomorrow's session would be again shared on on our Telegram community or in Discord community. So if you're not being a part of the Telegram or Discord community, do definitely join the community so that you can get live and interesting updates. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a couple of videos so that you can get interesting insights.
Visit us today.